If you've ever seen an old building in your neighborhood and thought, I wonder what's in there, then I've got the perfect event for you to put on your calendar. Open House Chicago from the Chicago Architecture Center is back October 18th and 19th. It's a free citywide festival where you get behind the scenes access to more than 200 of Chicago's most beautiful, historic, and interesting buildings across 25 neighborhoods. Seriously, there's no tickets. You just pull up and explore the buildings. Plan your weekend now at openhousechicago.org. Steppenwolf Theater kicks off its 50th season with the Chicago premiere of Mr. Wolf. Written and directed by ensemble members, the Chicago Tribune gave it 4 stars and called it explosively emotional. And I watched the trailer, y'all, and that seems like a perfect description. It follows the story of Teresa, a 15-year-old who has been missing for over a decade. Now a miraculous reunion has left her with a family she no longer understands nor recognizes. Get tickets now at steppenwolf.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, property tax bills are coming eventually, but where are tax hikes set to hit hardest? It's Monday, September 29th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Today, I'm joined by some old friends of the podcast from the Chicago Tribune. AD Quigg is back in the building. Welcome back, AD.
Thank you for having me.
And we've got Alex Nicken with the Illinois Answers Project back for his 5011th time. Alex, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you.
Now, of course, longtime listeners probably know that if I'm introducing the two of y'all together, then we are most likely going to be talking about something frustrated related to our property tax system. And today is going to be about why the South and West Sides are likely to feel some of the biggest hikes this year. But before we jump into the conversation today, and before we all get way too mad about those property tax hikes, I want to remind listeners that this is the last week of our Fall Neighbors campaign. Our membership program is an easy way that you can invest in us and the work that we do. Whether you've been here for 4 years rocking with us as we have thrown so many different ideas at the board to see what will stick, whether you just got here over the last few months and got to meet some of our newest team members like Hey Chicago newsletter editor Emmy Mack, social media manager Rick Homuth. Regardless, if you take value from the work we do, then this is a way to say, hey, we love you. We want to see you here a little bit longer, and you can help us build a more informed Chicago. When you become a neighbor at membership.citycast.fm, you are going to pay $10 a month, or if you got it like that, $100 a year to ensure that we can keep bringing you this podcast and this newsletter every single day, and bringing it to almost every single person who's listening for the free. Because we know not everybody's going to sign up to become a neighbor. I would love to have a packed out neighborhood, but hey, we appreciate everybody who can sign up. And if you sign up this week, you're not only going to get the ad-free listening and the neighbors-only events, but you are also going to get our Neighbors Make Chicago tote bag. I think this is like, I don't know, edition 5 or 6 of the CityCast Chicago merch. But the only way you're going to get it is if you join now at membership.citycast.fm. All right, so let's get into it. Your latest looks into property assessments and how those have increased on Chicago's South and West Sides. Alex, which neighborhoods are we talking about and how much have they gone up by?
We looked across the whole city and across the whole county and found that some of the neighborhoods that are seeing the biggest increases, and biggest in terms of percentage, right, in terms of proportion, are neighborhoods like Lawndale and Garfield Park on the west side, Englewood and Roseland on the south and far south side. And we should be clear that we're talking about, they're still relatively lower than they are in other parts of the city, but they're doubling or tripling just as a function of their assessments going way up is sort of a big shock from last year and the last time that they were reassessed.
AD, remind us, what's the relationship between property assessments and how much we actually pay? Like if the assessment goes up 160%, does that mean somebody's property tax bill will more than double?
No, not necessarily. The general rule of thumb is if your assessment goes up a lot more than the median, and in this case, the median increase across Chicago is 22%. So if you go up a lot more than that, you should expect an increase. We just don't know how big the increase is going to be citywide. Although we did do some calculations for a few individual property owners using what we know about levies, and levies generally, so the amount that every taxing body in the city of Chicago raises, are all going up. So if you're above that 22% median increase line, you're going to see an increase. And for some of the people you're looking at, it's hundreds of dollars. For some, I would expect thousands.
Before I keep going, you talked about the different taxing bodies and their impacts on your property taxes. It feels like when we're talking about property taxes, we're mostly looking at the mayor's office, like will they, won't they during this budget season. But can you remind people some of the other people who are responsible for if your property taxes go up or not?
Totally. So Chicago Public Schools make up the biggest part of Chicagoans' bills. So about more than half. The city of Chicago makes up 20-ish%. Mayor Brandon Johnson made a pledge not to raise property taxes. He tried to last year, didn't succeed. So the city's property tax levy, the city of Chicago as a unit of government, their levy hasn't gone up in the past couple of years. Cook County is another taxing body. Again, their levies have not increased, but smaller ones have. So like the Chicago Park District is a taxing district. The Metropolitan Water Reclamation District is a taxing district. And all of them have levies that they pass every single year. And they are all together responsible for your bill going up and down.
So a good way to think of it is that the levy is the size of the pie and the assessments are how much of the pie you owe, right? It's sort of how much you owe in relation to everyone else. And so if everyone's assessments go up by the same amount, and the levies stay the same, you're not going to be paying more. But if most people's assessments are going up by an average of 22%, and your assessment is going up by 150%, which is what we found in a lot of these neighborhoods, you can expect higher taxes.
Got it. So what's driving these higher assessments right now on the south and west sides?
If you ask the assessor's office, it is just the fact of the market and what's happening and what sales are. I mean, what they will say over and over again, especially when people, understandably blame them for the assessments going up, is, look, we have a statutory legal duty to just try to call balls and strikes and not make a policy decision about how much you should be saying. We're trying to assess the actual market and what sales are. And sure enough, we looked at sales data and found that the median home sale prices in these neighborhoods, especially in Englewood and Lawndale, have really rocketed up just in the past couple of years. The other question beyond that is sort of what is driving that, or how organic is that? How much is that because of sort of market activity that's being driven by people who live there, and how much of it is being driven by sort of outside speculative investors who have come in and identified affordable land and bought it up for higher prices to sort of drive up the market. And the assessor has limited tools to sort of look at that and count it or discount it from its equation of like, well, how much is your property really worth?
In your story, you all focused on a couple of properties where it feels like there's been a flip-flop in the last half decade where people's value has gone down and then it shoots up a couple of years later. Like, what's leading to these sort of drastic swings back and forth for some property owners?
There are two explanations that we could sort of identify for why the last time the city was reassessed in 2021, so many of these homeowners valuations seem to go down. One of them is that that was the first city reassessment after Fritz Kagi took over from Joe Barrios, which was in 2018. Barrios, it was revealed through a lot of really important, Tribune and ProPublica investigation, had been artificially, wrongly putting too much of the tax burden on homeowners to give a break to downtown, commercial developers. Kagi came in and sort of re-skewed that to take more burden off of homeowners. And so at that point, homeowners got a break. The other thing to keep in mind is that in 2020, Fritz Kagi, the assessor's office, took this pretty unprecedented step halfway through the year of making an adjustment, his so-called COVID adjustment, to try to preemptively factor in what the impact of COVID would be on property values. And so that also took a big piece out of what they thought single-family homes were worth. And then, lo and behold, the market did the opposite. And so there was a lot of correction and sort of a lot of these rapid swings are the result of going back and realizing, oh no, these houses actually shot up in value. They didn't go down.
You all have mentioned that investors are buying up properties. You also have people who are looking for affordable places to raise their family who are moving into some of these neighborhoods. But what do we know about who is buying property in these neighborhoods at large?
What we were able to look at based on sales data that the county maintains is like a very broad overview. And we did the easiest thing we could do, which was looking at how many of these property buyers had LLC or Corp in their name. That's like the shortest shortcut we could possibly make just to try to get a sense of like how much of this is outside people versus, John Smith actually buying a house. And in these specific neighborhoods we were looking at that had the biggest jumps, we found about a fifth of them were LLC or Corp buying these properties up. That doesn't necessarily mean all of these LLCs are like evil outside private equity that is scooping this up. Some of this is like nonprofits that are trying to do work on the ground to like drive organic investment in the neighborhoods where they live and make it affordable for people to stay and affordable for people who cannot do upgrades to their homes themselves. But some of it was, outside investors. Some of it was also governments. So a lot of the property sales that we saw in Roseland, for example, was the CTA buying up properties to make way for the Red Line extension. So some of this is actually organic, but like a good chunk of it is driven by outside investors.
We did try to trace some of these LLCs, and they brought us to some of these kind of funky looking websites that were very bland, and you couldn't really see who they were, but they were advertising great investment opportunities in the city of Chicago. They had names like, Urban Renewal LLC, or things that just sort of make you think like, what's really going on here? What are these people, what are they doing? What is their intention here? And we talked to, a nonprofit developer, Richard Tansa with the Lawndale Christian Development Corporation, who is really concerned about this, who is looking at speculative investors coming in, and as opposed to the idea of, oh, this is great, this is driving up property values, this is driving up our equity, he was really suspicious, understandably, of like, well, what do they want? Why are they trying to buy property in our neighborhood? Are they trying to create more families who are going to live here and send their kids to school here and invest? Or is this just like a quick flipping play so that they can, make a quick buck and leave? And the implications there are really important for, what these neighborhoods are going to get out of it if they are paying more taxes because the properties are now more valuable.
Fall is in full swing, which means fall theater season is back and cracking across the city. And I got another pick for you to look out for. Don't wait to secure your tickets to Timeline Theater Company's world premiere of Hundreds and Hundreds of Stars. Motherhood, marijuana, and the multiverse collide in this story set in Chicago, exploring family, immigration, and identity. The play follows Clara, who's applying for U.S. citizenship ahead of a trip to Paris with her tween daughter, but Clara's application is unexpectedly flagged, threatening the only home she's ever known. We got a quote from the playwright and star Sandra Delgado, who says, "This is a very personal family tale, not unlike those playing out more and more every single day in Chicago and around the country." Starting October 8th, this Timeline production is being hosted in the immaculate Looking Glass Theater space in the historic Water Tower Waterworks at Pearson in Michigan. Visit timelinetheater.com for more info and to get your tickets today. Look, it's been a warm, mild September. Nobody, including myself, want to think about winter and the snow and the wind, but it is coming, my friends, and you're going to want to make sure your home is ready. So if you've been putting off replacing your old drafty windows, and you can, now is the time to call Window Nation. And you really should do it now because time is running out on this Window Nation sale. Until September 30th, that's next week, when you buy 2 windows, you're going to get 2 for free. So you can get top quality, energy efficient windows at a reasonable price. Plus, installation only takes a day or less, so they're in, out, and you can get back to your day with brand new windows on your home. Don't miss out. Schedule a fast, free estimate now with the pros at Window Nation. Call 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com. I got a feeling a lot of you out there got some excellent people skills. Maybe you've worked in hospitality or customer service, or a job where you've had to listen, anticipate needs, and make somebody feel valued. Now, if that sounds like you, then you know how to put people first. And those are the same skills you need to become a successful realtor. Key part, successful. As a realtor, you wouldn't be starting from scratch. You'd be shifting your talents into a new role, one where you can set your own schedule, build new connections, and maybe even grow your earnings. If it sounds like real estate could be your next career move and you're like, but wait, where do I get started? We got you. Visit realtorsrealestateschool.com today to schedule your free career consultation. That's realtorsrealestateschool.com. All right, real quick before we get back into it, look, I imagine today's show is probably hella annoying or frustrating, maybe even complicated to break down for a lot of our listeners. Obviously, no one wants a higher tax bill or to be scared out of the idea that maybe they can one day own a home in the city of Chicago. Of course, like most of our topics, we are once again confronting Chicago's legacy of segregation. But understanding all of this information is key to being an engaged and informed and ultimately a motivated Chicagoan. You can't really work to make things better if you don't understand just how bad they are. I imagine that's why many of you keep listening to this show, in addition to listening to us be bougie and give you some of the fanciest restaurants we spend our time and money at, the places we like to go for jam sessions or late night cocktails or to play Dungeons and Dragons, whatever we interested in. If you want to support this show even more than just sharing us with your friends and family, then maybe you can go to membership.citycast.fm and share $10 a month with your boy, or $100 a year if you just want to get it out the way, right? You don't want to see that charge every month after month. You just want to make that one-time payment and then know I ain't gonna have to do this for another 12 months. I like that, actually. I would suggest you go about it that way. On top of the support and the love, we also got some perks for you. We got ad-free listening. We got neighbors-only event. In fact, we got one coming up real soon. And so again, if you've already joined up this week or you've been a neighbor for some time, thank you. I see you. I appreciate you. We have probably already shouted you out on the podcast or the newsletter. If you just joined, we gon' shout you out on the podcast and the newsletter. The idea that me rambling in my room has somehow entered into your daily or weekly or whenever you got some time routine still blows my mind. But I want to keep doing this as long as possible. And your support, your love, you sharing us around, bragging on us is only going to help us make that possible. So again, let's get back into this episode to talk about, one of Chicago's biggest boogeyman, property taxes. I feel like I've sat down with you two over the years to talk about sort of disproportionate burden that some neighborhoods and parts of the county feel. In 2022, it was Pilsen. Last year, it was largely Black families in the south suburbs. How are the hikes we're expecting to see in these neighborhoods, whether it's Inglewood, Lawndale, Roseland, how are they similar or how are they different than what we've seen in previous years in other parts of the city?
I think you could argue that they're pretty similar. It's a phenomenon of what has happened in the intervening 3 years since that part of the county was reassessed. With the south suburbs, it was, again, the first time since COVID and the sort of big housing boom that happened after that. And the assessor's office actually identified this, that they had seen similar kind of like outside investment or gentrification activity that really pushed up prices and made it a big difference in Pilsen between 2018 and 2021. So that when the city did reassessments in 21, Pilsen was like slammed with these much higher assessments and then as a result, higher bills. And they even said it was the same thing in Logan Square in 2018, the last time before that the city was reassessed, and on and on. So they're trying to trace this very similar pattern. The difference is, these are all very different situations. Logan Square is not Pilsen, is not Englewood. Englewood has a very high poverty rate. Englewood has a lot of very vulnerable homeowners. And the implications for people who had been maybe used to not paying, in many cases, any property tax bills at all because they had a homeowner exemption to now having to pay, $1,000 or more. That's really serious. That could lead to more delinquency. That could lead to people who may not even be able to stay in their homes. And it's a real concern, I'm sure, for people who represent them.
I mean, with these assessments going up, theoretically, that is the type of investment that a lot of people in these neighborhoods that I've grown up in have called for. But as we've alluded to, it ends up hurting some homeowners. Why is that?
Because a lot of these homeowners want to live and stay. They don't want to sell. So it's great if you invest in a home as a piece of equity, and maybe you're close to retirement age and you want to sell it to spread that money out amongst your children, and you can move off to Florida or something. But for a lot of these people, these are homes that they bought decades ago, expecting some appreciation, but not big, huge spikes like this. And they have no plans to sell. We talked to one neighbor who said, I'm staying here until they throw dirt in my face. If I wanted to sell, it would even be difficult for me to buy someplace else in the city or county. So the sustainability problem is a big one.
He did also say, and he was one of multiple folks on that block, in fact, who said, I have to start blocking calls because I'm getting constant phone calls from these people offering to buy my home. And if you're a homeowner, maybe on some level that feels good, like, oh, my home is desirable, it's worth more. But if you're not planning to move, if you don't have the means to move, and especially if it's not like there's a much more affordable neighborhood in the city of Chicago, than Englewood or West Garfield Park to move to, they're kind of not really stuck with any better options. They're just stuck with a higher tax bill.
Is there any communication between the assessor's office and the people in these neighborhoods that are like, hey, this is the work that we're doing. These are the type of bills that you can expect? Because it feels like a lot of people are caught off guard by these major fluctuations year over year.
So the assessor's office said, as soon as we saw these numbers starting to come in from the assessments, we knew that this would have to be a really big outreach year for us. And they said, we held hundreds of events. What we found, though, when we spoke with aldermen who kind of co-hosted a lot of these events that say, here's how you can sign up for exemptions, a senior freeze, how to appeal if you really think that we're wrong on your value. When we talked to aldermen, they said, we're not hearing from residents that they're freaked out about this. The problem is people get assessments and it's kind of a piece of paper. When you get your bill, it's very real, but there are months that happen in between then, and your ways to address it need to be taken when you get your assessment, not when you get your bill. And a lot of people don't understand that kind of rule of thumb that we talked about at the start of this, that, okay, if my assessment goes up a lot, then what? And they also see their assessment in a vacuum. They don't know what everyone else's assessment looks like. So maybe you see that number and think, oh, good, my property is more valuable. And you don't understand that, all right, my assessment went up way more than everybody else in the city. I'm probably in for a big bill. And it's complicated. I mean, we've spent 20 minutes already kind of describing this and walking through every step. It's not something that people think about when that assessment notice lands.
And we talked to probably about a dozen South and West Side aldermen, and only one, to her credit, it was Alderman Emma Mitz on the West Side, who we didn't end up quoting in the story, but she was the only one who said, like, yeah, I've been actually noticing, I've been hearing from people who have been getting these really weird, out of whack reassessments. Every single other alder we talked to was like, no, what do you mean property tax? It's not, I would have heard from my constituents about this. Or some were even like, oh, you mean in the south suburbs? Yeah, they got hit really hard. And I'm like, no, that was last year. I'm talking about the newer ones. And it was just so not on their radar. And that's where it becomes this sort of like finger pointing game between, some of them say, well, the assessor should be doing a better job doing outreach, but the assessor says, no, we did it, but you just didn't communicate it to your own constituents. And it really is this puzzle of like, how do you prepare folks for news that no one's got to be excited to tell them. They don't want to hear this, so that, what's going to be coming, because of the delayed nature of the calendar, especially this year. You get a lot of lead time to understand or sort of predict what kind of impact assessments are going to have on your bill.
Right. And the assessor can't encourage people to appeal just if people are afraid their bill is going to be too big. They don't want to encourage people to appeal unless they think that value is wrong. So at outreach events, for example, that I watched, they stream all of their outreach events. I went and back watched a few of them, and they had a lot of questions from people similar to what you asked, which is my assessment went from 80,000 to 200,000. Does that mean my bill is going to go up by X, Y, or Z? And the assessor's office basically said, we can't tell you that yet, but if you think your value is wrong, you should appeal.
What does that look like for a homeowner? Is that an expensive process? Is it does it take a lot of labor? Do they need to, is this something just any person can start on their own?
Anyone can do it. You don't need an attorney to do it. Alex is the homeowner of the two of us here. I've never had to do it, but I am assured that it's a straightforward process. You do not need to have an attorney to do it. Basically, what you need to do is get all of your documents together, including comparable properties. The assessor actually just released a tool that said you can look up your address, and we will tell you, we will give you a handful of properties that we used as comps to come up with your value. So sometimes they tell you to appeal if they have the description of your house wrong, for example. So like what material it's made of, or how many bedrooms you have, or square footage, or something like that. It's supposed to be pretty straightforward. And like we talked about, your alderman or your county commissioner should be able to help you if you feel very, very lost.
Say if, a bunch of people start appealing, their assessments go down, but you talked about this like a chunk of the pie. Who is that burden then going to fall on?
Everybody else. Everybody else.
And right now, who's doing the bulk of the appealing?
Rich people.
I mean, really gets at the heart of the inequities baked into the system that Kagi ran on, that Barrios was found to be, why it was such a big deal that he was giving such big reductions to commercial and downtown property owners, because they get spread onto everyone else. And this is also a really big part of the ongoing push and pull between Kagi's office and the Board of Review. And very often the Board of Review comes in and they are overwhelmingly getting appeals from folks who, represent the big downtown Class A office buildings and are able to afford lawyers and go through this whole system. And they're in many cases getting really, really significant reductions. Of course, the Board of Review is saying, no, these are legitimate. They're coming with real arguments and things that Kagi has overlooked because we think his math is wrong. Kagi comes back and says, no, you're just giving them unjust breaks that they don't deserve. And that's sort of the finger pointing there that goes back and forth. But it really matters because literally any time anyone who is not you gets an assessment reduction, it adds a teeny tiny little fraction more to your bill.
Have we seen any period during Kagi's time in which some of that burden has been shifted back on to commercial real estate?
No, largely because the Board of Review, which we should say is a 3-member quasi-judicial board that basically hears appeals to Kagi's assessments, often agrees that Kagi has overassessed commercial properties. And they are second and final answer, essentially. Whether they are right has been the subject of a lot of study. So who is right on commercial and who is right on residential has been studied a bit, not enough. I think the county is committed to doing what they call a sales ratio study, which is basically when they compare sale prices to assessments and say, how close did the assessment get? So there have been cycles where the assessor has overdone it on commercial, and then the Board of Review brought it down to closer to what the sale price is or what it should be. There have been times when the assessor was correct, and then after appeals to the board, they got knocked down to lower than they should have been. This is going to be an ongoing push and pull, and part of the problem is they use different math to land on their numbers and put different weights on different factors. There's been an effort at the county to try to get them to talk more and agree and share more data so they could be kind of working out of the same textbook, but that has had fits and starts.
We've mentioned people haven't seen these hikes yet. AD, some astute property owners may be listening to this and asking, wasn't I supposed to get that bill back in August? But you've been reporting on delays at Cook County. Why is that, and what's the impact?
So yes, the county as a whole for the past decade or so has been trying to upgrade its technology dealing with property records. So like every property record, little bit of data has been getting moved into this new system run by Tyler Technologies, which is a Texas-based company that has been helping the county upgrade also with fits and starts. They were ready to launch and basically move everything over from the old mainframe system that was built in like 60s, 70s, 80s onto this newer system so that all the agencies could be talking to each other, everything could be updated. When they were just about to make the switch, they were doing some last minute testing, and basically all the offices said, we found way too many errors, and we need to press pause on this until we know that all the data that's getting fed into this new system is accurate. If it's not, we could have people ending up with bills that are thousands of dollars higher than they should be or $400 lower. And as we know, that shifts everything else around. The other problem was they were worried about when the money came back in, are we going to be able to distribute it out to all the taxing bodies across Cook County? There are hundreds of taxing bodies across Cook County. As it has been described to me by a lot of county people, whenever we fix one thing, we break another. So it has been weeks and weeks and weeks since this was supposed to launch. And they get a little bit closer on some things, further away on others. There was a hearing at the county the other week that they said, we think and hope and expect we will have bills out before the end of the year, but it's not a matter of days, it's a matter of weeks. So I am kind of operating on the hope that they would get bills out by December 1st, due before the end of the year. This is really important because people need to be able to count that property tax payment when they calculate their income taxes. Like, they need to be able to use that as a deduction. So that's a big deal. But also we know that these taxing bodies need that money, including the city of Chicago, Chicago Public Schools, almost everywhere else. In the interim, the county has created this new loan program. So any suburban municipality that's really worried about having enough cash to make it through the year can get basically a float until tax bills come back in. I'll be very interested to see who all applies. But yeah, in the meantime, we are all in weird limbo and we don't know for sure when bills are going to come out.
Is there a similar pot of money for homeowners who may be getting with higher than expected bills who need some help paying those off?
So the county did create a smallish property tax relief fund as part of its last budget. They are waiting for bills to come out or to have like a specific bill come out date to launch that. But it's a small pot of money, I think, compared to what the ultimate need is going to be. Anytime there's been some kind of relief program like this, they have thousands more applications than they do money to give. The thing that officials have said over and over, which you could do almost any time of year, is to make sure that you are getting all of the exemptions that you are entitled to. So like we mentioned earlier, if it's your primary residence, every homeowner is entitled to a homeowner's exemption. If you are a low-income senior, you are eligible for a senior freeze. Seniors get exemptions, veterans get exemptions. That's kind of the best the county can do for now. Fritz Kagi has been trying to pass a circuit breaker program that would also grant relief to people who saw really big increases in the past few years, but there's just no money in Springfield at the moment to pay for it.
Well, I appreciate both of y'all making time for CityCast Chicago. This feels like our biannual property tax report with the Chicago Tribune's A.D. Quigg.
Thank you for having me.
And from the Illinois Answers Project, Alex Nicken.
Thank you. It's fun as always.
Before we get out of here, I want to give a huge thank you to our new CityCast Chicago neighbors. That's Donald S., Nicole K., Jason C., and Jessica S. Each of them, like every person who has signed up this week and last, is going to get access to our exclusive CityCast Chicago Neighbors Make Chicago tote bag. If CityCast Chicago, Hey Chicago, is that place for you, right? Is that go-to podcast, whether it's once a week or every day throughout the week, then consider signing up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor. You go to membership.citycast.fm. Of course, I got some good news for you. This weekend, kick off Filipino American History Month with the celebration at Outset. Philippine X is going to feature some amazing DJs and artists from across the city like King Marie, Miles Medina, Noodles, and others. And we're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace. What's up, y'all? Jacoby Cochran, senior host of CityCast Chicago. If I had to guess, you already know that, which means from listening to this show, you also know how much I love my city, how much this team rides for Chicago. And honestly, one of the best parts is we love helping you understand the city, feeling more connected to it. Because at the end of the day, the only reason this show works is because of you. You're probably somebody who like to shop in their neighborhood whenever possible, right? You're probably somebody who keep their library card on them, who their friends and family come to for their opinion and their thoughts on the stories happening in and around the city. You know how I know this? Because that's me. So if this sounds like you, I'm going to invite you to join CityCast Chicago Neighbors. Our membership program is designed to help people just like you. You're going to get invites to members-only events, our curated weekly roundup of the best things to do in the city, and a chance to share your love for Chicago on our podcast. Plus, your membership directly supports the people making this show every single day so that we can keep bringing you the stories that matter most. Become a CityCast Chicago neighbor for $10 a month or $100 a year at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm.